Welcome to Hilarity by Default's weekly Brisco County Jr. reviews, starring the incredible chin of Bruce Campbell. This week we're taking a look at the second episode of the series, Ace in the Hole, also known as the Orb Scholar. Brisco and Lord Bowler are separately hot on the trail of John Bly when they come across an old friend that once left Brisco to die at the hands of the murderous Swill Brothers. Betrayals and death traps ensue as fate leads Brisco once again to the unearthly orb and the mysterious scholar who's connected to it.
This really ramps things up. I'm very curious to hear what Kyle has to say here, because his very first reaction to this that I heard via text, if I remember correctly, was that you really liked this episode, and that intrigued me because this episode focused on one of the things that you weren't a big fan of in the pilot. So what were your initial reactions to this?
So the big thing I didn't enjoy, I think that you're alluding to in the pilot, is the orb. Yeah, and I mean, that aspect is still present, but I like the way that they worked in Bly and the reconnection to Bly in the episode. I like the thing where he was revisiting the sheriff in that town. He catches two deputies robbing an old guy who turns out to be a scientist that's studying the orb or whatever. But the way that sheriff ends up tying us to Bly in a fashion that Admiral Akbar needed to be way more present in this episode than he was. It's a trap, was great. I really liked Lord Bowler in this episode. That's obviously a fictitious name. No, I made it up.
That's a completely fictitious title, I assume.
No, I just made it up.
There are some great exchanges in this show. One of my favorites.
I don't want to bore you with the story.
Then don't make it boring.
I mean, listen, that's the key to our show, baby. Anyways, I think overall, like, the way that drama, the table was set with that drama, where we started with the flashback and Brisco County Sr. Made the save for Junior there and all that, and it wasn't just because Bruce Campbell hell, for a lot of the episode Campbell's on his back shot, right? Spoilers. So other people are having to carry the mantle, and there's a lot of good stuff that goes on in this particular episode.
It's not just Bruce Campbell, it's Bruce Campbell and Robert Picardo. This is probably the first thing I ever saw. No, the first time I ever saw him was an episode of Home Improvement where he played the meat guy. I know that's random as hell, but it's the honest answer. Then I saw him in this, then I saw him in Voyager, and then many years later I finally saw him in probably what is his breakthrough role in The Howling.
I heard you say that, and all I can think of is James Lipton going, "Before you were the doctor on Voyager, you were
Joe, the meat guy."
You were Joe, the meat guy on Home Improvement.
How did you prepare for this role? Did you go to a lot of meat factories?
Was your father ever known as the butcher? You see all these freaking, dudes with man buns and purple-haired actresses in the audience, like listening intently,
Yes, James, I actually had to tenderize 3 cows. Before we put them down. It was terrible.
At any rate, and that's when I did a little film called Natural Born Killers. No, wait, what? No, man, seriously. There was a lot of there in this episode, I felt like, where I felt like they were elements in the pilot that were shoehorned in. It felt like things were added there to fill space. This was far more efficiently delivered. Bly was a smooth douche, though granted some of the traps, I'm like, come on, Brisco, that's a trap. I'm playing the part of Admiral Akbar watching this piece. Lord Bowler's talent, and the way that at the end, I love, because this is at the end of the episode where County collects Lord Bowler as a sidekick, and the way that happens is like, where are you headed? Where are you headed? He say, he's like, oh, I'm doing so-and-so to go find so-and-so, whatever. Where are you headed? I'm going to follow you because I know you going to find Bly, or something like that. It was perfect. It wasn't one of these golly jeepers moments. He's like, bleep you. I know where my bread's buttered. Let's do this.
And that's definitely something that keeps developing as the series goes on. I agree with you, and I like the fact that you mentioned Bly being tied to the orb. I thought that was a very good development. It definitely added a more of a intriguing mystery to that character, because and the pilot already was very padded.
Right.
Just to get it to 90 minutes. This, by the benefit of being 45 minutes, it was much more taut. And not to say that there aren't other 40-minute episodes of Brisco that aren't padded, but in this particular one, it worked very, very well. But tying him into that made it all seem a lot more cohesive. And yet, the entire episode had an ambiance of foreboding that worked very well. The orb, as silly as it is, as silly as the design is, I think in this episode, perhaps even more so than in many other episodes, comes across as what it is intended, as something of a mystical threat. Let's say he's pulling out a blue halogen ball every time he takes it out with cartoon electricity effects. I mean, it's selling that as Ark of the Covenant level is very difficult to do. But I think that this episode gets there, practically.
No, I mean, and they basically last crusaded him, if we're going to keep those analogies up, with something that kind of at times looks like something I could find at the local science center, and yet it works.
Now that you mentioned Last Crusade, I mean, we mentioned the pilot episode that this was co-created by the screenwriter of Last Crusade. So in the first episode, we had the exact copy of the death of the villain by turning to dust. Over here, we have the hero getting shot in the stomach and then being saved by the artifact. Brisco County Jr. is a long-form Western remake of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Holy crap.
Part Indiana Jones, part James Bond.
I'm still waiting for the James Bond part, other than the rocket ship.
I mean, listen, Q wasn't a thing back then. Oh no,
They have John Aston. He's the Q.
I was about to say Socrates for sure.
Socrates isn't Q. No, it's John Aston. He's the Q.
No, you're right.
Yeah, Socrates is Moneypenny.
Oh my God.
He kind of is Moneypenny without the flirtation, unless you really read deep into this episode's opening golf game. This episode had a lot of setup and character building. A lot of things were introduced in this episode that permeate throughout the series. We have the setup of the Swill Brothers through the flashback. You learn more about them as the series goes on. You have the introduction of the Orb Scholar. He plays a bigger role in this, and especially with the connection with Bly. Most prominently is the dynamic between Brisco and Lord Bowler. I think that this is the episode that sold me on Bowler. You really get to see the highs and lows of his character. You see the dramatic bond that they have when Brisco is shot, and you see the comedic, even MacGyver level hijinks when he's trying to escape from jail. You see the best and the worst of Bowler in all the greatest of ways.
I know they couldn't do it because they were on network television. It was like, you sing? It really would have been better if he said, like an angel, mother fireball. Obviously he can't say that.
And I think another thing that I really enjoyed about this was the flashback foreshadowing of how Brisco was shot and left for dead. And it happens in total, including the flashback, thrice in this episode. He's left for dead by the villains. Once in the flashback, once when they drop him in the well, and lastly, when he's shot and left for dead.
Apparently, he's just as bad at his job as Captain America.
Anyway. Honestly, if it wasn't for the flashback, I think him being shot and left for dead later in the episode would have bothered me a lot more. Because they set up that crazy character trait for his friend, the sheriff. No wonder he's haunted by Brisco. He's haunted by the stupidity of his actions.
Well, even still, like the beauty of the whole damn thing. The thing I like best about the plot is like County literally is ready to be like, listen, I don't forget it, but I forgive you. Let's move the on. Help me get Bly. No, I don't believe you. Everyone, guns. I mean, that whole drama that ensued, and then finding out that he's tied to Bly, and again, the whole thing was great. You already said it better than I could, because all I was going to say is the biggest winner of this episode is Bowler. Lord Bowler gets hot. Like, Lord Bowler does anything better than Kyle Bowler ever did as a quarterback for the Fireball Ravens, okay, folks? Lord Bowler stepped his game up. It's not that he was bad in episode 1. You actually developed the out of him here.
Oh, that's the problem, though. If you watch the series to its conclusion, and then you go back and watch the pilot, where Bowler gets knocked out with one punch, you don't buy it anymore.
Yeah, it's some bullshit. It's like
by the second episode, you don't buy it.
It's like, right. It's like Worf in Next Gen versus Worf in Deep Space Nine.
Great analogy.
Steroids.
And we got Robert Picardo, so it works.
There you go. When did he take the steroids is my question.
It is a little convoluted, but I do like the confrontation between Brisco and Bly.
I like that, and I like the scene where Bly sends the sheriff back after Brisco. That was a good exchange to me, too.
The entire ending of that episode is badass and definitely benefits from the foreboding atmosphere that permeates. It's almost the ending almost plays out like a ghost story, more like Clint Eastwood in High Plains Drifter, where you're not sure if he's real or if he's a ghost.
That's a fine take now that I'm thinking about that. And really the only thing wrong with this episode, Demos, not enough Comet.
Comet knocks a gun out of a dude's hand.
And we don't see him for the rest of the Fireball episode.
I think that one of the biggest weaknesses in the episode is the turn where they arrest Brisco, they arrest the old man, they arrest Lord Bowler. They're in jail. Brisco's friend shows up. Oh, why are you in there? Let's take you out. Okay, well, I'll do anything for you, Brisco. Okay, well, let my friends out. Well, I want to keep Bowler. No. I guess you didn't mean everything. So he lets them all out. They go and have dinner just to arrest him again and throw him in the well, right? He didn't learn any new information. He didn't get anything out of Brisco that he needed to lull him into this false sense of security, even though he practically screamed that he was a villain from the get-go. Mm-hmm. That scene, him getting released from jail, exists for the sole purpose of getting the other characters out. So we'll have extra scenes to get them back in.
Well, yes and no. I think the idea of the dinner, at least in some part, was to try to kind of extract what Brisco knew about the orb. But
the sheriff didn't know anything about the orb until later.
I'd probably have to rewatch to verify all of that. And perhaps that's a missed opportunity to make that work.
They're trying to do a lot in this episode.
Sure.
Like I said, there's a lot of setup here, and if they had more time to just focus on the interaction between Brisco and this character, they would have tried to bluff it a little bit more. Okay, maybe he is his friend, maybe there is some forgiveness. Get him out of jail. Try to actually pry some information. He gets that information and then he throws him in the well, etc. There'd be a little bit more to justify the get in jail, get out of jail, get in jail, get out of jail, leave him for dead, get him in jail, leave him for dead, ghost Brisco.
I hear all that, but I think you're skipping over too. And granted, I mean, I know it's a justification for something that you're saying could have been organized better. I'm not arguing that part. Maybe it is, but I think it's fair to interject that the sheriff it actually is wrestling with something in his head. There's some there when you think about him trying to process what just happened and his actual big fear for the past 12 years or whatever it is in the episode coming true. Well, there's some there.
There's honestly, in comparison to some of the later villains in the series, this particular guy had a very intriguing dilemma and personal connection to Brisco,
right,
that could have been the focus of a two-parter in many ways, especially considering the flashback and the connections to the father and so forth. And in many ways, he takes the back seats to Bly, practically overshadows everything with his flamboyant David Bowie-esque cowboy persona. Which isn't to say that it isn't a strong element, and I like the episode for all these moving parts, but I think that this is, if I had to find a weakness in this episode, that would be the biggest weakness. That, and also for the fact that the power of the orb may have made Brisco temporarily bulletproof. But what protection did Comet have?
It's Comet, that's what. Hello?
No, what? This bad guy is not only going to be haunted by omnipotent Brisco, now he's going to be haunted by the freaking horse that you couldn't shoot either. So, all in all, how many comets do you give Brisco episode 2 Ace in the Hole?
Without having seen all the episodes, this is where the bar is set. I may have to go back and round up my comments and put them in a proper stable. But if the pilot was a 4, this has to be higher. And it has to be, 4.5, 5 comments, right? This is a really good episode. I liked it better than the pilot. I'm compelled to say 5 for now. Then, yeah. Because half a comment just sounds kind of like... great.
Which half?
The half that can disarm a man unassisted. That half.
I'm actually giving it a 5.
Damn.
And based on, and once again, for those of you just joining us, we're basing these ratings. It's not 5-star as in one of the greatest episodes of television history. We're basing these ratings within the series of Brisco. So within the series, this would be a 5-star episode. I've heard a lot of people particularly don't like this episode because it's not as action-y.
That's because they're jackasses. Next question.
But like, just to put my finishing thoughts, we had a lot of the action in the pilot. This was the episode where we were supposed to really get invested in these characters, and I think they succeeded in many ways. The first episode really sold us in Brisco. This sells us on Bowler. Now we have a practical complete team. Now we're just waiting for the episode that sells us on Socrates, and we're complete.
So let me put it this way. For those people that had a problem with this episode, we know what half of the comment they are.
So join us every week as we cover all 27 episodes of The Adventures of Brisco County Jr. We invite you to watch along and let us know in the comments below what your thoughts are on each episode, and make sure to like and subscribe for more fun on Hilarity by Default.